Right, well, welcome back to Countdown into Australia, Meatloaf.
Thank you, Ian.
Where are we now? Dallas?
No, we're in Austin, Texas, the capital of Texas.
Right.
And if you... Nope, you can't look out that way and see the Capitol building. We're lower.
Well, I'm waiting for the what is it?
The turtles.
Turtles.
Yeah, this is turtle land here all along by. This is the Colorado River. Right here we have the Colorado River, and this river runs from the Gulf of Mexico down by Galveston all the way through the Grand Canyon in Arizona.
I tell you what, we've gone far enough. I think we'll stick right here. Now listen, a lot's happened to you since you were out in Australia. The album went so well in Australia, still selling.
Yeah, still selling. They called us the other day, said it was up to, I don't know, some enormous figure.
Right.
Enormous figure for records. Yeah, it did, all over the world. Album did real well all over the world with the exception of Japan.
Right.
I don't know.
It's been a long time since that album was released, though.
Yeah, 2 years, but that's all right. Gives you time to sort of sit back and gather things in and figure out where you're going from here, because you have to have a plan. If you go too fast, and you lose your sight of your game plan. It's like playing a soccer game or a rugby game, or something like that. Without a game plan, if you play too many in a row, you don't know who you're playing or who you're playing against or what you're playing for.
Right.
And so, I had to, some emotional problems coming off of, the fact that you are successful is sort of tough. The fact that you are a star gets a little tough, it gets a little mentally tough, the fact, because I never wanted to be called a star, or anything like that. But then the fact is that you are, and you have to deal with it, and you have to come to grips with that fact. And so that takes a while for a person to deal with that. And you just sort of learn how to deal with your lifestyle, and it's a different life,
Now, with Bat Out of Hell, not that it was a concept album, but it was an album that was unique in its time of being released, because there was nothing else around, and probably nothing since like that sort of album.
People have tried, but nothing like that, even our second one is not like Bat. It's a different kind of thing. I think it's as good, if not better in some respects, but it's different,
Right.
And it was hard coming up with it was real tough. Trying to have a follow to Bat Out of Hell, because Bat Out of Hell is a real special record. I mean, I still listen to that today, and I've known it longer than anybody else, and I love that record. And I love the new one too, And the new one's Bad for Good. The working title was Renegade Angel, but the song never got written, so we didn't do that one. It's Bad for Good.
Now, is it the same songwriters, the same team?
Jim Steinman, yeah, me and Jimmy. And Todd started out on the project, and we sort of lost him somewhere in the shuffle. I'm not quite sure where, but that's all right, because he did a lot of good work on this new record. And then Jimmy sort of took over, and then I sort of took over, and then the movie sort of took over that I'm doing now.
I was about to say, like, it's not that you've been idle in the last 2 years, and you're in the middle of doing a movie.
Yeah, no.
Alice Cooper has already
right, Alice Cooper, Blondie, Roy Orbison.
So can the man himself tell us about the movie?
Sure. The movie's about a character it's called Roadie, just Roadie, not the Roadie, but Roadie. And it's a man called, it's about the story of a man called Travis W. Redfish, who was from Corpusville, Texas. And Travis Redfish drives a beer truck and delivers beer, and is a mechanical genius. And the idea of the movie is to create the new hero, the new American hero, or the new world hero, or whatever, meaning me, which is sort of humorous to me. And he knows nothing about music business at all. And he doesn't understand why anybody makes records, and why anybody did, since Buddy Holly died anyway. That's his trip. And he's into country and western, or country rock or whatever. And he gets picked up by a girl named Lola Boulabays from Tulsa, Oklahoma, who is a groupie and who is a virgin.
Right.
And how many virgin groupies there are, I don't really know, but anyway. So she takes him on this adventure, and and he becomes a roadie.
Right.
And he doesn't know what a roadie is when it first starts, and he sets up Hank Williams equipment in 10 minutes, sound and everything. And it's like it has, you pan the club where he's at, and he comes back around and it's all set up. Right. And he fixes transmissions and drives without clutches and fixes televisions and builds an entire, they cut the power on a Blondie concert. And he uses trucks and hay wagons and horse manure and cow manure and all this stuff, and puts it all together and creates this entire unit to run an entire concert. And then at the end of the movie, I won't tell you the end. You're not supposed to tell the end. I don't know. That's something I've seen on television. Don't ever tell them in.
Outside your hotel with all the cruise equipment and that, there's a beer truck
Oh yeah,
and
beer
there's a bus.
There's
with,
the bus, Texas or bus. You know, that's Alice Cooper. See, I save Alice Cooper's concert.
Right.
He's got this brand new world famous sound equipment, and nobody can fix it. You know, nobody knows what's wrong with it. And Travis comes in and asks for a dime and a knife and, you know, some tinfoil and stuff, and fixes it. And it's called the Redfish way.
Right.
Because this guy, you know, and so he wants to go home because his sister's getting married to his best friend, and Alice says, well, if you fix my sound system, I'll get you a bus.
Right.
So that's it. I come from New York, Madison Square Garden, down to Texas in this bus, and to Joe Ely's Texas, You and Me.
Now, can you just tell us some of the people that are in it? There's
Art Carney and Gaylord Sartain, who's on a show called Hee Haw here in America, and this young actress who's in a Paul Mazursky film, which is coming out in December, called Khaki Hunter, who's fantastic. Rhonda Bates, who was on a lot of American television. And then there's Blondie, Alice Cooper, Roy Orbison, Hank Williams Jr. The soundtrack consists of Bob Seger, The Cars, Jackson Browne, Styx, Earth, Wind and Fire, myself. It goes on and on and on.
Now, for a singer, you're not really singing?
No, I don't sing in this film. The only time that it's not really singing, it's a thing where I make a group because they refuse to go on. I bend this mic stand, scare them half to death, and force them out there, and I see this girl Lola, and we do this thing that's sort of like, it's sort of like based on the Queen thing, Get Down, Make Love.
Right.
It's a sort of rhythm thing, and I go Lola, and they go Lola, Lola, Lola. You know, it's sort of spoken kind of sung kind of thing. But on the record, we're writing a whole piece, which will be on the soundtrack, make it a whole song, because they want to release that as a single.
Now, before we get on to your touring plans, did any of your roadies take you out and teach you how to be a roadie?
No, see, I was a roadie first. You know, I've been in the business for 13, 15, I don't know how long, a long time. And I started out, you know, as a lead singer, and you run the sound, you know, from where you stood, and you run the lights by pushing on the things on the floor, and, you know, and so I wouldn't let anybody touch the equipment with this band because they only slowed me down. And I had what I had was different sets of gloves for different things, and I had these mitts for these roadie, and I packed the trucks and trailers, set up and could fix amps, and so I knew what to do. You know, I go and be a lot of times that we were late, the crew was late or something on our tours, you know, and I'd be in there and they'd be telling me, the union crew would be going, who are you and what are you doing in here? I go, well, I just came down to see what's going on. Well, you're not supposed to be here. I said, well, I am. And they, you know, but I'd go down with the crew and hang out and check it out. So I know basically what's going on as a roadie.
Right now, you've got the album. You hope that your album is out hopefully when?
Well, as soon as I finish this picture, which we don't know. I mean, it's about 3 or 4 days behind, so it'll probably be a week late, sometime the end of December.
Right.
Then I hit the studio once again, and I got to finish up a few vocals, and then we got to mix it. You know, I can't see any more than 6 weeks, 7 weeks after we get out. Maybe it's in February,
then
and if not the 1st of March. Then
a tour, right?
Then I have a tour in which, with the third record's going to be a live record. It's around the world, and we're going to start in Australia with it. And you told me to say this, so I will.
Right.
Well, I want to play in Tasmania, because I got this thing about I want to make it a Tasmanian release. Limited Tasmanian release, you know, for my around the world thing. And so I'm going to record, like, in you know, if I can get to Tasmania, I don't know, but I like the name Tasmania. I want to record in Sydney and Melbourne, you know, and then sweep on in and go into, you know,
for the live album.
Do one, you know, and we'll record like 25 cities, and take something from each performance, you know, so that you know, it's like everybody feels a part of the record.
Now I've got to ask you, how grueling is it for you? You've put so much. I mean, when we saw you last time on stage, and we first got the taste of it with the.
Well, listen, I never wanted to work again, if that's what you're asking me. When I finished after 11 months, I'm on the floor, and I'm going, I ain't going back out. I mean, I never want to work again. I've had it. What the hell are you doing, you know? And I locked myself up, and then we for about 3 months, and then we started on the record last January. And then I started to sing again, and I didn't feel right. I didn't want to do it. I wasn't into it. You know, I wanted to rest. And then when I finally did get around to it, I started to sing, and we started singing really hard. And then I did all these vocals, and then I wanted to go back in and do them, and something happened. And I couldn't figure out what was going on. It was like really bizarre. I thought it was mental. So I went to a hypnotist and all these things. Finally, I went to this doctor, and he says, no, I had a paralyzed vocal cord. It was like sort of swollen. You get hoarse, and after you get hoarse and it swells down, swelling goes down. It's not like a nodule or something, you know, where you have to operate. But it was sort of permanently sort of swollen for a while, and it wouldn't vibrate properly on this side. So he said rest. And so in that period of time, I had, you know, the late 60s, you know, because Joplin and Hendrix and all those people came out of there. In the 70s, people sort of got, in the early 70s, I turned away from music completely. after, you know, because I had rock and rolls bands in the 60s and the Who were around and everything, and I completely turned away from it, went into theater and stuff, you know, because I got real sick of it, because people talking about, you know, it wasn't rock and roll anymore. I mean, it wasn't rock and roll. We were talking about 30s relationships, you know, which is cool to sing about if you're Andy Williams. I'm not putting down Andy Williams, or if you want to do that, that's fine. But don't put the tag on it rock and roll, because rock and roll, you know, is that whole energy, that fever, and you know, it's got.
Meatloaf Part 2, and I promise he won't talk as much this time, Michael.
It's not true.
Right, well,
and it was real boring, and I got tired of it. I got out, you know, I got completely out of the music, and went into theater in New York.
Well, theater had seemed to have a lot. I mean, like you had sort of Jesus Christ Superstar, Godspell.
But I don't consider that rock and roll either. You know, that wasn't really rock and roll. I mean, that was sort of rock beat. You know, I had, you know, the 4/4 drums, you know, going on it, but it wasn't really rock and roll. And then all of a sudden, people like Bob Seger and Bruce Springsteen, and people like that just sort of kept pushing at it. And the Who kept pushing at it, and the Stones kept pushing at it. And this resurgence started, and that sort of, you know, it sparked some people, you know, it sort of sparked myself. And I said, well, there you go. Let's go get it. Let's go do some rock and roll, you know. And then Tom Petty, and then all of a sudden we got to the punks, you know, and they got the energy. They got the energy back going, you know. Musically, they were a little off because some of them couldn't tune up, you know, which didn't help things too much. But the energy was there, and what they were saying, you know, it got a little political, but it had that didn't have all the elements of it, but it was starting. And then all of a sudden, something very strange happened, you know, which sort of left the entire sort of industry and like going, wait a minute, what's going on here? You know, there's some talented people who did. Donna Summer, for one, who is a real good singer, real talented, and she's not going to do disco on the next record. She's going to start singing, you know, and that's what Donna Summer's going to do, and I think that's great, you know. And there was some legitimate acts, you know, but most of it there was no real artist, and they didn't sell through, and now that period's sort of going over, and I really like that, you know. And there's a lot of people now. Tom Petty and you know, a whole lot of people. You were naming some other people, you know, out of Australia and things like that. And we're coming back around. And I think that, you know, you know what I mean. Go ahead and guns blazing, because James Caan's not going to go into a bar, or Warren Beatty's not going to go to a bar and smash over his head with somebody with a beer bottle. Give me a break, you know. And these people that, you know, out here going to do some numbers, you know, and that's sort of what it's like, and it feels real good.
Well, police was saying last night in an interview in Houston that the energy crisis is going to have a lot to do with rock and roll. Like rock and roll will make statements that they have to refine themselves for the energy crisis.
I think rock and roll will make statements, but I think rock and roll, I think politically rock and roll, you know, it's like it always sort of makes statements, but Joplin and those people sort of made statements in a whole nother way, you know? I think rock and roll has to take a stand instead of make a statement.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I think the rock and roll performers, separate and apart from their music, can make the political statements and control the political side of it. But I think the music itself has to take the stand instead of take the situation.
Right.
You know, so it's like it's going to have a lot to do with a lot of different things, you know. But I think rock and roll is always rock and roll. I mean, you're not going to take the Stones. The Stones aren't going to start singing about President Carter.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I don't think that's where rock and roll should go, and I never did.
Right.
You know.
You look optimistically at the 80s.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I think we're coming at it, right. And I think all, you know, the kids that are, you know, I mean, it's like I'm hoping that I'm helping someone. You know, I'm hoping that I'm opening doors and I'm like clearing a path for somebody to run right over my back.
All right, well, listen, we wish you luck, and you've got so much on your plate, and we can't wait for you to come out to Australia.
Oh, listen, I'll see you guys soon.
All right.
And tell that mother not to ask me anymore when I'm going to lose weight and give you a show, because I gave you a hell of a show last time.